Hello, friends, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Snakenanigans and Stories. As you can see, I dressed for the occasion, and I brought my other little friend, my little dragon friend, JP Grunts, with me, and I will have two very special guests this evening. One will be Sunshine the Ball Python, and the other one will actually be Jonathan. Jonathan is here this evening. So I will wait just another moment to see some eyeballs popping up, and then we'll get started with our exciting lineup for this evening. And thank you as always for joining me, and I hope that you're all doing well and hanging in there. Probably anxious to either watch the debates or read about them on social media afterwards, or however you plan to get your information. So we'll keep this nice and light and lively and happy, and hopefully nobody will have to mute me. So again, if you're joining me now, it is I, your host, Amelia Cotter. Do not be fooled by my disguise. I wore nice earrings so that you would know that I am, a sophisticated woman, and I'm here in my dragon costume. Rawr! Celebrating Halloween, of course, and also just my general weirdness, and I have my little friend JP Grunts here. And we will talk about our lineup for this evening. So we're going to have a meet and greet with my very special ball python, Sunshine. And we're also going to read several very cool stories. We'll do another one from Short and Shivery, 30 Chilling Tales, retold by Robert D. Sansucci, recommended to me by my friend Esther. We've been having a good time with these so far during the series. We'll read one from Scary Stories 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones by Alvin Schwartz and illustrated by Stephen Gamble. And of course this one is illustrated by, I always forget her name, and she's a very cool lady, Catherine Colville. Then we'll do a story from my book, Maryland Ghosts. Since we're getting close to Halloween time, I start reminiscing about all my weird little nostalgic adventures around Maryland when I was growing up. So we'll read about one of those. Hi, Johnny. Welcome. And it's good to see everybody, and it's probably funny for you all to see me dressed in my special costume. I do want to share with you my current reading. So, I can't remember if I told everybody, but I was asked by the Society of Midland Authors this year to be a judge in the Midland Authors Competition. So I will be a judge for the children's fiction component, and I have started to be flooded with really, really cool children's fiction books that I'll be reading over the winter, and then selecting a winner or more winners for the awards banquet next May. So I just wanted to briefly show you some of the selections that I've received so far. Gray Horse at Oak Lane Stable by Carrie Lukasavitz. The League of Secret Heroes by Kate Hannigan. This is book 2. And actually, Gray Horse is also book 2 in the Oak Lane Stable Adventures. And then Ghana, A Place I Call Home by Monica Habia. And so I'm really excited to get started on reading these 3. I know that I will have many more coming along the way. And after the competition is judged, we get to do whatever we want to with these books. So I think what I want to do is just keep maybe one or two of my favorites, and then I'll have a book giveaway, however that'll work as we continue into 2021 in the time of COVID. I'll do a book party or a book giveaway or something along those lines, so that if I have a lot of fun, awesome books, I can share them with everybody, and or donate them, something cool like that. All right, I'm ready for my snake. Hi, Jonathan Pollock, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Montgomery Pollock. Let it be known that we are, a sophisticated and refined couple of weirdos that only ever wear these dragon onesies around Halloween, of course, because why would you wear them any other time? So, welcome for those of you joining me now. Hi, welcome back to Snakenanigans and Stories. We're coming down to the wire here on Halloween, so these will be our 2 Halloween editions. That's why I'm in a costume. And this is my very special boy. And I know it's getting dark, so that's might be a little fuzzy, so I'm going to try to show you some clear images of him throughout our little discussion here. But Sunshine is probably a very recognizable snake to many of you because he is a ball python. And there's no special morph or coloring or anything about him. Who's that ghost in the background? He is considered to be a basic ball python. So this means that he has the coloration that he would in the wild, that you would see if you encountered a wild ball python, which would be really cool. And if you were going to encounter a wild ball python, you would do so in sub-Saharan Africa, where they like to live among grasslands and in the savannas. They like sparsely wooded areas, so they're not jungle-dwelling creatures. They like to live in dark areas, in burrows and termite mounds and things like that, where they are ambush predators who lie in wait for tasty treats to scurry by. Well, hello, everybody. Hi, Sarah. Sunshine says hello. So ball pythons are the smallest of the African pythons. They don't get to be usually more than 3 or 4 feet long. And Sunshine he's kind of getting up there in age, and he's full grown. And he's a pretty hefty boy. He weighs about 4 pounds, and I think he's a little bit over 4 feet long. But you won't see a male ball python get much longer than this, although some females can get up to 5 or 6 feet. You don't see them very often. They usually stay fairly small. And like our corn snake that we met last week, Miles, ball pythons are some of the most common snakes found in the pet trade. They're also kind of like the golden retrievers of the pet trade, or of snakes as pets. So I'm trying to think of a different type of dog, or maybe, I don't know, the calico cats of the snake world. But anyway, they're really common, and they're great beginner snakes. They're very docile. They're great with kiddos, and they're very predictable. They're very lazy, and relatively easy to care for once you get everything set up and kind of know what you're doing with them. Much like our other snake friends, they will live 20 to 30 years in captivity, and that lifespan would be a bit shorter in the wild because of things like predators and parasites and diseases and all sorts of other things. It is, in fact, a jungle out there. I see. Thank you, Anna. I'll do at least one snack boop for you. And Aftabur is asking, how many snakes in total do we have? We have 5 snakes. Works out perfectly for the Snakenanigans and Stories series. So this is week 4. We've gone through 4 of the snakes. We had Dewey, the Suriname Colombian red-tailed boa mix. We had, who went next? Moonlight. Moonlight was second, our spotted python. Then we had Miles, our corn snake. Now we have Sunshine, our ball python. And next week we will have the crowd favorite from Spooky Story Tuesdays, which was Pepper, who's our Hog Island boa. So, ball pythons are also called royal pythons. They are considered, or have traditionally been considered, to be sacred and good omens, according to some African tribes. And so thus they are associated with royalty. They're also called ball pythons more commonly because when they get scared, they will actually roll their bodies around their heads into a little ball. And I think I mentioned this during the time of, oh my God, Marty, it's a little hot in here. During the time of Spooky Story Tuesdays, that I had seen a photo of, some old white British explorers from like the 20s or 30s that had gotten their hands on some ball pythons, and they were the first, Europeans to bring them back to, England or whatever. And the photo was of these two guys tossing a ball python back and forth like it was a football, because they roll so tightly into a ball. And the photo was basically this poor snake in midair. So Sunshine has never done that. I've seen ball pythons do that. If they get nervous, snakes are more nervous than they are aggressive. They only have their head and their mouth as a defense mostly. So their last resort is going to be to bite or fight or attack. Mostly they just want to get away or be left alone. So this is the defense mechanism that these guys have. And Sunshine, I can't imagine him ever biting anything except for when he eats, and he becomes like a whole different snake when it's feeding time. They are nocturnal, and you can see if you look really closely that he has these heat pits, and we talked about heat pits and heat sensing pits when we met Dewey, but you can see them really well. Heck, there we go. He's got this cute little Daffy Duck face. I think people love ball pythons because they have these sweet kind of gentle looking faces. They're not as spoopy as some of the other snakes. They don't look like they're, angry all the time. Anyway, so he's got these little heat pits that help him sense the body heat of his prey, as well as vibrations. He doesn't like that. No, mommy. Vibrations of potential prey, and that would be things like small mammals. Generally, these guys stick to small mammals because they like to hide in burrows and places underground. That's what they're going to run into. Or I guess I should say what would run into them, since they like to sit in ambush and just wait for their food to come to them. They're very lazy bones. They're like pet rocks. I've actually heard more people refer to them as the pet rock of the snake world because they don't do much, and you don't see him very often in the winter time. He's also our guy who stopped eating for several months in winter, so he starts fasting around like November and then might not eat again until February, which seems alarming, but he is a good weight, and he usually loses a little bit of weight over the winter, and then comes back with the vengeance in early spring and gets right back on the horse, and then has a huge poop sometime in early spring after not pooping for months, and it is really, really bananas. So in any case, moving right along, one thing that I also wanted to mention was about shedding. So Miles is actually about to shed right now, and I think this is one topic of about snakes that we haven't talked about yet, just in general, is that snakes do shed the outer layer of skin every few months. So when they're younger, they'll shed more frequently, and as they get older, they'll shed less frequently, even though they do continue to grow throughout their lives. This is why snakes are often in religion and mythology considered to be representative of the circle of life and rejuvenation, and they're associated with the feminine magic and things like that, and because of this cycling. And in any case, he shed recently too, right? He shed, I think, last week. And basically they kind of go into this dormant state where they don't do much for a little while. I think it's a lot on their bodies to kind of go through this process. Right when they are about to shed, so they start to become like a dull color, and then their eyes turn kind of blue, and then when after that happens, when the skin begins to lift away, then their eyes return to normal color. They start to look like their normal coloration again, and that's when they're ready for it to peel off. And then they start kind of somewhere on their face, they'll catch their lip on something to kind of pull that skin back, and then they basically very slowly crawl out of their old skin. So if you find a shed skin, it's inside out, and it's very cool. And if you have a pet snake, it's a good indication that they're healthy and doing well if they shed in one piece, and that usually also means that they have good humidity and that they're they're happy little guys. Sunshine can go both ways. So sometimes he will shed in one piece without any trouble whatsoever. And then sometimes he has a little bit of trouble. And we learned from his foster mom, who had him for several years, that he always had some trouble shedding. And so sometimes we have to help him with a little bit of a warm bath. That's the most high maintenance time that we have with our Snekums, is when they're shedding. But he's the only one of our little dudes who ever has issues with like the flakes of skin, and trying to help him kind of peel off the bits and pieces. So, Sunshine lives in a 40-gallon terrarium, just like Dewey, and he has newspaper as the bottom substrate, as the covering at the bottom. We have that for all of our snakes. It's easy, it's sanitary, it's healthy for them and for us, and it's not stinky. Even though snakes are not smelly, but their poo is extremely smelly. Uh-oh, what happened? He touched a button. Okay, we're still here. The cooler end of his terrarium is about 88 to 85 degrees, and the warmer end will get to be about 90 or 95 degrees. They need to thermoregulate because they're cold-blooded. This is true of all snakes, so they can't maintain their own body heat, so they need to move between temperatures, and it's really important that they have the opportunity to do that. So he prefers it to be cool, just like the rest of our snakes. And he has some natural looking plants and hides, of course. These snakes love to hide. They love to have their bodies completely hidden. So all of our snakes have these plastic hides that just have a little opening so that their bodies can go completely unseen. And then if they want to come out and hang out and stare at us, which sometimes we just walk by and their face is just kind of like out, and you're like, oh, that's their choice. So we also try to keep his humidity, as well as the other snakes, at around 50 to 60%. That's like a good range. Miles is the only snake we have that doesn't really care what his humidity is, and will shed and be healthy and thrive in all types of environments and weather. And I think that's also because all of our other snakes come from tropical regions of other continents, and Miles comes from a climate that's similar enough to this one, to basically, he can handle it. Let's see. I took notes like I always do, things that I thought were cool that I wanted to share with you. I also wanted to address the tongue flicking. I think we touched on this a little bit. He's doing that right now. So when snakes are flicking their tongue, that is just them sort of apprehending their environment around them. So understanding and recognizing what is around them. All of us, actually, mammals and as well as reptiles and amphibians, have something called the Jacobson's organ at the base of our nasal cavity, so way at the back of our noses, that connects to our mouths and our throats. And for these guys, they have this forked tongue that comes out and kind of takes in information. People are always like, oh, it's tasting me, he's going to eat me. And it's a little bit true in a sense but it is more like a sense of smell. So the snake is just trying to discover what's around it, because they don't have terrible eyesight, but they don't have great eyesight either. And it's not the sense that they rely on the most. So in any case, they stick their forked tongue out, and then they retract it, and then they put the little forks into the ducts there of their Jacobson's organ, and it helps them understand what is around them in their environment. So sometimes they will do it more frequently if they are a little bit nervous, because they are trying rapidly to understand who is holding me. Where am I? What's going on? Some giant being has hoisted me into the air, whereas 2 minutes ago I was hidden under this rock. Why is this happening? Well, it doesn't always, mean that they're going... Well, it never means that they're going to eat you, but it also isn't a sign of aggression or anything. It's just how they relate to the world around them. Another cool thing about Mr. Sunshine is that he has these spurs on his cloaca. So we talked about the vent and the cloaca. I think we only referred to it as a vent before, which is this hole near the base of the tail. where they do all their business. So that's where all of their reproduction occurs. That's where they go to the bathroom. All of that stuff happens out of this one place that is called the vent or the cloaca. Boas and pythons, and especially on Sunshine, I don't know if you got to see it because it's getting a little dark in here, have these little spurs. And these spurs are remnants of leg bones. So these guys, millions and millions of years ago, evolved from lizards with very short legs. And they also have remnants of a femur and a pelvis. I could not read my own handwriting. And these are called vestigial remnants for people that want to have fun at cocktail parties talking about this stuff. They're usually bigger on the males, even though males and females both have them. And like on Dewey and Moonlight, they have them too, but they're super tiny and hardly noticeable. So they vary in size depending on the snake. Males tend to have bigger ones because they do use them to tease the female before reproduction, and they apparently also use them when they are fighting with other males. So again, fun facts along the way. And so that's very cool. So these remnants of the pelvis and the femur are sort of like free floating in the body as part of like the bone structure, which I think is also really neat. And they still have them all these millions of years later. And they still apparently serve this purpose. Or serve a purpose, I should say. So I do just want to give a little bit of a backstory on Sunshine before we move on to the story time and before I sweat to death in this costume. Sunshine is our second ball python that we've had. So some of you may remember some pictures of a sweet little baby ball python that we had who was Sunshine 1 or Sunshine the First. That we only had for a few months after adopting him from the Herpetological Society, and he passed away. He got very sick. He was probably sick before we had him, and I still dream about it. I still feel terrible about it, and I love ball pythons. My childhood snake was a ball python, Jimicus, or Jim, and I had him for 10 years. I got him when I was 13 years old because I was allergic to dogs, and my mom thought she grew up with snakes in the house because her brothers had big snakes and like alligators in the bathtub, which I don't recommend, but that's probably how Chance the Snapper got into that lagoon there after living in someone's bathtub for a while. So don't do that. But in any case, she thought it would be cool if I would have a pet snake. So I have a special place in my heart for ball pythons, and we loved Sunshine 1. We wanted to have another ball python after him that we named Sunshine 2, and we adopted him. He is a bit of a special needs guy, so he is approximately 10 or 15 years old. He has a mysterious backstory. He has this back injury, which is actually right here. So that's, I think you can see where he has this dip in his spine, where there's a separation between his spine here, where it's kind of flattened out. And this supposedly happened to him at an animal shelter that he was staying at, where they probably weren't used to having reptiles or amphibians around. So maybe somebody mishandled him or dropped something on him or something like that by accident. If they were startled by him, who knows? And he has lived with this injury for a very long time. His foster mom that we got him from at the Chicago Herpetological Society used to take him to get acupuncture in case he had any pain or discomfort left over from this injury. So when we adopted him, we took him to the vet. He got an x-rayed and everything. We just wanted to check in, and the vet said he's actually fine. All of his systems are working with no problems, and he was not adopted out easily because of this weird blemish that he had. Whereas I feel like I'm one of those people that I want to walk into a place and I'm like, give me the saddest, most neediest, creature that you have. And I want to nurse it back to health. So we were just in love with him from the second that we saw him, and had to bring him home. And he's been just the coolest companion, and we've had him since, I forgot to look, he's the only one I forgot to look up, 2018 or 19.
18.
So we've had him for almost 3 years also. I think we got him in March 2018.
I think so.
After, like a couple months after Miles. So thank goodness I have my partner here to remind me of what's going on. So Sunshine is remarkable in many ways, and of course he's touched a lot of people's lives too with his story, with his happy ending story. And of course when we take him for programs, kids love him, and they get to hold, for kids he's like this big snake, and they get to hold him and enjoy him, and he makes everybody smile because he is sunshine. So I think because JP's actually here tonight that I will relinquish the snake. But maybe we'll bring him. Maybe we'll just bring him back at the end if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my! It'll be much easier for me to read and to adjust my little. I don't know what's going on here. I've got like I'm like b-boy style here with my dragon costume. Oh Lord! All right. So I think, and I'm sure you're all crying a river of tears. I think I forgot to do spooky talk before my snake talk. So, bad Amelia. So we'll do spooky talk now. So now that I have a lot of people watching, probably can't come for the weird costume that you scrolled past and stay for the spooky talk. We'll do this. So I'm going to feel the magic of the cards, and I'm going to pick out this one. Oh, another highly appropriate question this evening. So, this is the image. Some of the spookiest horror stories in American fiction and film come from the vivid imagination of Stephen King. In dozens of works, King's monstrous characters, like Carrie, are ordinary people who are capable of extraordinary evil. Who is your favorite author of science fiction or horror fiction? So that's our spooky talk topic of the night. Please answer in the comments. JP Grunts is thinking about his answer. Who is your favorite author of science fiction or horror fiction? All right, so feel free to post your answers at any time. Let's get to the stories, and also any questions that you have about sunshine or ball pythons or snakes in general, or literally anything. I will Google it if I have to. Hello, Ben. Thank you. Yes, I know, the matching costumes. Hey. Cha-ching. All right, so tonight, if I don't pass out, we're going to enjoy this story called Jack Frost from a Russian folktale from Short and Shivery. So this is kind of more of this is like a Nightmare Before Christmas type of theme, but when I was reading this story particularly resonated with me. It's very creepy. And cheers to all who are enjoying a snack or a beverage with me this evening. So, feel free to post your questions. I think I see some. Ooh, Neil Gaiman. All right. H.G. Wells. Noise. Keep them coming. All right. JP, you have to think, too, about who your favorite is. I have to think about who my favorite is.
Frank Herbert for science fiction, because I'm a big fan of Dune.
Oh, Frank. What's his name?
Herbert.
Frank Herbert.
Dune.
From Dune. We just watched Dune. JP got me to watch Dune the other night. I liked it, so going on record. All right. Jack Frost. Once upon a time, there was a widow who had a daughter of her own and a stepdaughter. Whenever her own daughter said or did anything, the woman would pat her on the head and say, "Clever girl." But no matter how hard the stepdaughter tried, she was always being called foolish or lazy by the woman, who often scolded her and sometimes beat her. The truth of the matter was that the stepdaughter, Maria, was kind and beautiful, while the woman's own daughter, Yagishna, was plain and selfish. But her mother saw only what she wanted to see, so she praised Yagishna continually and made Maria's life a misery. Even an angry storm blows itself out at last, but the old woman's hatred for her stepdaughter never lessened. She said one cruel thing after another, and she was forever grabbing Maria by the collar of her dress to shake her for being such a burden on us. One day, in the dead of winter, the stepmother made up her mind to have done with her stepdaughter. She told her aged servant, "Old man, take Maria into the open field where the bitter frost is the thickest, and leave her there. I don't want to set eyes upon her or hear her voice ever again, and if you value your life, don't take her to the warm house of your relatives." The old man begged her not to force him to do such a wicked thing, but the stepmother would not relent. Because he knew that his family would starve if he lost his job, he put the girl on a sled. He tried to cover Maria with an old horse cloth, but Yagishna saw this and snatched it away with a sharp laugh. "Do as my mother says, or you'll find yourself and all your children out in the cold along with her," she said nastily. Heavy-hearted, the old man drove Maria out to the open fields near the edge of the forest. He set her down on a heap of snow, hugged her, then hastened home as fast as possible so that he wouldn't see the child's death. Poor little Maria remained where she was, shivering and softly saying some prayers. Suddenly a strange-looking man came leaping and jumping from the forest toward the girl. He wore a greatcoat of silver-white fur, a high-peaked cap of the same silvery fur, and boots of white leather worked with silver. He had thick white eyebrows and a bushy white beard, while his nose was as red as an apple. His coat and hat were spangled with diamonds, and silver bells on a white ribbon across his chest jingled as he bounded toward Maria. Little girl, I'm Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed," he said. "I bring the winter wherever I go." "Oh," she said sadly, "welcome, Jack Frost. God must have sent you to take me away from this world. It will be hard to leave, for it all looks so beautiful today. The snow is so white, and the air is so clean, and the ice sparkles like diamonds." Now he was about to touch her body and freeze her to death, but he was moved by her wise words and sad eyes. Instead, he reached into one of the immense pockets of his greatcoat, pulled out a fur coat, and tossed it to Maria. She quickly put it on, then squatted on her heels. Sitting in the snow, she watched while Jack Frost went leaping and jumping back to the edge of the forest. In a twinkling, he was back, carrying something in his arms. Little girl, I'm Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed," he cried. "I have brought something for you." "Is it my death?" Maria asked fearfully. But he had not returned to take her life away. He brought her a chest, heavy and deep, and filled with bedding and petticoats and all sorts of warm clothes. Then Maria sat on the chest in her fur coat, laughing and clapping, while Jack Frost danced for her. A third time he bounded away to the forest's edge. This time, when he came back, he gave her a cloak embroidered with silver threads and studded with pearls and diamonds. Wonderingly, Maria drew this cloak over her fur coat. She looked as beautiful and elegant as a grand duchess. For a long time she sat there, happily singing songs, while Jack Frost danced lightly over the sparkling ice and snow. Meanwhile, her stepmother said to her servant, "Go, old man, and bring home my daughter so that we can bury her." Then she set about fixing the evening meal for herself and Yagishna. A short time later, the gate creaked, the doors flew open, and the old servant dragged in a chest, heavy and deep. Maria followed, radiant and regal as a princess. When the stepmother saw all the riches Maria had returned with, she immediately set an extra place at the table for the girl. She sat her stepdaughter down, pretended to ask her forgiveness, made a great show of giving her the daintiest morsels, even though Yagishna complained about this, until she had gotten the whole story out of Maria. As soon as Maria was asleep, the old woman called her servant. "Old man," she ordered, "harness the horses and have them ready to go at the first light of dawn. Take my daughter to the same field in the very same place and leave her there. Then return for her in the evening to gather up the treasures she will receive." In the morning, the old woman struggled to awaken her daughter. "Let me sleep," complained Yagishna. "It's too cold to do anything else." "You must go and get treasures from Jack Frost, you lazy creature," her mother scolded. "Can't we just take Maria's gifts for ourselves?" asked her daughter crossly. We will," said her mother impatiently, "but why settle for one treasure when we could have two? Now get up." Grumbling, Yagishna did as she was told. She put on her warmest coat and hat and boots. When she was on the sled, her mother bundled her up in furs and blankets. Then the old servant drove her to the field and left her there, just as the morning sun turned the ice crystals bright as diamonds. Yagishna sat on her pile of furs and tried to keep her eyes open. Suddenly, Jack Frost came prancing from the edge of the forest. Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed," he said. "Then be quick and bring me a treasure," said Yagishna, who thought he looked foolish with his leaping about and jingling bells and nose like an apple stuck to the front of his face. Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed," he repeated. "I bring the winter wherever I go." "When you've brought me my treasure," said Yagishna disagreeably, "you can go and take winter with you. It's ugly and cold. Now, where is my gift?" Young woman, I am Jack Frost, the ruby-nosed," he cried, dancing closer to the girl. "And here is your gift of diamonds and silver." And he stretched out his hands to Yagishna. In the evening, while Maria stoked the fire, her stepmother anxiously watched the door for the return of her daughter. And here's the illustration. Suddenly she heard the creak of the gate outside. Without waiting, she flew to the door and saw the old servant standing behind the sled, cap in hand. Impatiently, the old woman pulled at the mound of furs on the back of the sled. "Yagishna, foolish child, come out from underneath. You'll be warm inside in a minute, but first show me your treasure." To her horror, when the woman pulled back the last fur, she saw her daughter lying there, a cold corpse. Silver snowflakes frosted her eyelashes, and ice like diamond chips beat at her lips where her last breath had frozen. The shock was too much, and the greedy stepmother fell down dead in the snow. Maria became mistress of the farm, where the old servant continued to serve her faithfully all the rest of his days. And that was the story Jack Frost from Short and Shivery. Checking in with everybody for our spooky talk. Who is your favorite author of science fiction or horror fiction? I, of course, have like 1,000 responses. I think Stephen King probably is one of my favorites. Michael Crichton would also be up there. R.L. Stine, and of course, everybody that I've been reading from this whole time. And I think that... what's that? You have a question? J.P. Grunts is asking to who wrote Wind in the Willows? Asking my faithful assistant on behalf of J.P. Grunts. Because he also wrote...
Kenneth Graham.
Kenneth Graham also wrote a book about dragons. And I think that's J.P. Grunt's favorite little story. And he's nodding in agreement. How are you doing? He's not hot, like I'm sweating to death in this costume, but not really death, but just sweating to discomfort. All right, and we have a phenomenal question. Could snakes survive in space? So, if a snake was living on the International Space Station, presumably with his or her pals, astronauts looking out for them, then I think they could survive in space. There are some mice and rats, and of course, you know, we've sent dogs and cats and chimpanzees and other types of animals into space with varying levels of miracle and disaster. But I think that they could survive on the ISS if somebody wanted to take a snake up there. I don't imagine we'll find out anytime soon. But I do sometimes think about the mice and rats that live up there. And that reminds me of what Sunshine eats, because I think I forgot to tell you guys, and I know that you're dying to know, or discomforting to know, that he eats rats, so frozen thawed, and sometimes quail. So he enjoys a bird once in a while, and they are baby quail that are like 3 weeks old, so they're actually pretty big. And we feed all of our creatures frozen thawed, so our freezer is full of dead animals, but I have a feeling so is yours, just they're already cut into parts.
Smithsonian.
Whoa! Yeah. So actually, this is really cool. So in any case, so before I get to this is really interesting. It's safest for the snake to eat frozen thawed. It's obviously safest for the animal who is becoming the prey item to not have to contend with a snake. They can also injure snakes. So rats and mice have been known to seriously injure snakes when they have been, live fed and things like that. So I don't recommend that. And if you really want to know, I think that for these companies like Rodent Pro and other companies that specialize in raising and sending out these mice, rats, chickens, all sorts of animals that are fed to reptiles en masse, I think that they are humanely euthanized through gassing. So that is just to get ahead of the question, because a lot of people ask, and I think it's important to talk about. So now it went away. JP found an article from the Smithsonian about snakes in space, but then your thing went away, and it said in microgravity, snakes will... Stay tuned. Sorry, because I talk too much. In microgravity, some snakes tie themselves in knots, others attack themselves. Some animals just don't know how to deal when gravity goes away. And this is an article from July 18th, 2014, that you can find at Smithsonian.com if you type in... basically, go ahead and type in that title. In microgravity, some snakes tie themselves in knots, others attack themselves. So they may be able to survive, but probably aren't real thrilled about it. I didn't know, and now I know. So thanks, Ben, for asking that question. I'm going to have to read that whole article later. All right, let's check in again. Your favorite author of science fiction or horror fiction. I could rattle off a few more, including Shirley Jackson, if I didn't mention her already. And then, of course, the great Alvin Schwartz, if you can consider this fiction, because it's, folklore, which is a whole other topic unto itself. Maybe we'll have a whole talk about that one day. So from Scary Stories 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones, we have the story called Bess. John Nicholas raised horses. He had many horses of all kinds, but his favorite was Bess, a gentle old mare he had grown up with. He no longer rode her, for all she could do now was just amble along. Bess spent her days grazing peacefully in a meadow. That summer, for the fun of it, John Nicholas went into a fortune-teller's booth. The fortune-teller studied her cards. "I see danger ahead for you," she said. "Your favorite horse will cause you to die. I don't know when, but it will happen. It's in the cards." John Nicholas laughed. The idea that Bess would cause his death was nonsense. She was as dangerous as a bowl of soup. Yet from then on, whenever he saw her, he remembered the fortune-teller's warning. That fall, a farmer from the other end of the county asked if he could have Bess. He had been thinking that the old horse would be perfect for his children to ride. "That's a good idea," John said. "It would be fun for them, and it would give Bess something to do." Later, John told his wife about it. "Now Bess won't kill me," he said, and they both laughed. A few months later, he saw the farmer who had taken her. "How's my Bess?" he asked. "Oh, she was fine for a while," the farmer said. "The children loved her. Then she got sick. I had to shoot her to put her out of her misery. It was a shame." Despite himself, John breathed a sigh of relief. He had often wondered if in some crazy way, through some strange accident, Bess would actually kill him. Now, of course, she could not. "I'd like to see her," said John, "just to say goodbye. She was my favorite." The bones of the dead horse were in a far corner of the man's farm. John kneeled down and patted Bess's sun-bleached skull. Just then, a rattlesnake, which had made its home inside the skull, sank its fangs into John Nicholas's arm and killed him. And that... Whoop. Am I doing this correctly? No. There we go. There's the illustration. Unfortunately, when snakes play a starring role in a lot of stories, they're not always the good guy. Although there is plenty of folklore and mythology out there that does paint snakes in a much more magical and positive light. You can even find some of that folklore in the Bible, but again, that is a talk for another day. In fact, we have a whole talk about it that Jonathan and I give sometimes at conferences and libraries and things like that, called Snakes, Myth, and Magic. Anyway. Our final story of the night is going to be a celebration of Halloween time adventures, something that many of us are probably not having too many of this year. And so I always get nostalgic and reminisce anyway around Halloween, but this year especially. And I remember growing up and being a teenager and a college kid in Maryland, and enjoying snooping around after dark with friends, driving our old cars, our old beater cars around at all hours of the night, finding abandoned and haunted places and places of legend. And one of those was Hell House in Ellicott City in Howard County. So I will read to you about this place and some of the experiences that people have had there. Hell House, sometimes called Creepy College, is a legendary Maryland haunt shrouded in myth and mystery. It is often confused with the nearby Patapsco Female Institute, which is an entirely different Ellicott City structure that is still well maintained and even open for tours. The real name of Hell House was St. Mary's College of Maryland. It was a well-respected and nationally regarded seminary for men of the Roman Catholic Congregation of the Most Holy Redeemer, also known as the Redemptorists. The school opened in 1868 and closed in 1972 due to a general decrease in enrollment. The school was later sold to the state of Maryland in 1987 and incorporated into Patapsco State Park. It was partially destroyed by fire in 1997, leaving a gaping hole in the upper part of the structure, which lent to its striking appearance at the top of the hill overlooking the Patapsco River near Ilchester Road. All remnants of the building were officially torn down in February 2006, but a mysterious staircase near the train tracks at Hilltop Road still leads to the top of the hill where the college once stood. And those are the train tracks, and I took that picture. Hell House got its chilling moniker from the numerous intense and bloody legends circulating about what went on there, both during and after its time as a religious institution. As teenagers, most of us were well versed in the legends of Hell House. An insane priest had slaughtered several female students. This is likely due to the confusion with the Patapsco Female Institute, since there were no female students. Another priest hanged himself after the discovery of his illicit affair with a nun, and animals had been sacrificed as part of satanic rituals both before and after the school was abandoned. These are common legends that follow, religious institutions around the United States. Other popular stories circulated about what went on at Hell House after it was abandoned, including tales of seances, parties, and vandalism that certainly had some truth to them. Thrown in were the descriptions of the numerous discarded drug syringes and so much debris lining the property that it was difficult and dangerous to walk around up there. A mysterious dark pit was located in the central foundation of the main building. Deer would sometimes wander onto the property, fall into the empty outdoor pool, and die there. Ghost stories were frequently told about the shadow figures, which are human-shaped apparitions that appear in black or gray form, and mysterious lights that could be seen in the windows late at night. One young lady, Melissa, contacted me over Facebook with her Hell House story. On a mild evening in October, Melissa and a group of her friends decided to check out Hell House after years of hearing about its nefarious reputation. It was dusk when they made their way up to the aforementioned staircase, and dark by the time they hurried back down. The fact that Hell House was set on top of a hill and shrouded in woods already gave this group of friends a creepy feeling just walking up to it. As we made it to the top of the stairs, Melissa explained, we had to twist and turn a couple of yards before we had a clear view of the building. We never actually made it to the building because as we walked up, we looked up and saw something in the last window on the left of the top floor. It was a dark, shadowy figure. Everyone in the group saw it. The problem is that this particular part of the building had been destroyed by the fire, so only the facade of Hell House was still there. As Melissa says, there was nothing left behind that particular wall for anyone to stand on, or climb up on and play tricks on people from. Our group had already seen enough, and we hurried right back down the stairs to our cars. Even more vivid than the bloody legends or tales of Hell House being haunted were the stories always told about a friend who had encountered the caretaker of the property and his vicious dogs. The fire that had partially destroyed the buildings was alleged to have been started by a group of angry parents taking revenge on the caretaker after he shot and killed a trespassing teenager. There actually was a caretaker of the property named Alan Rufus Hudson, who owned a number of dogs that would bark loudly enough to make what was probably a very intimidating sound echoing off the abandoned walls of the property. He was known to be a difficult and eccentric person, but he never killed anyone and was never the target of the 1997 fire. I remember driving to Ellicott City at night with friends and seeing the old factory that sits at the bottom of the hill, the railroad tracks, and the looming silhouette of Hell House overlooking it all. I worked up the courage to visit Hell House twice. Once at night, when the graffiti and destruction from local thrill seekers actually did deter us from entering, and once during the day after it had been torn down and was just a pile of bricks and cement. And here's another picture. Whoop. There we go. That I took of the pile of rubble. Whether the former residents of Hell House, living and dead alike, are as evil as this place's reputation suggests will never be known. It's possible Melissa and her friends simply glimpsed a spirit of a former student or teacher who was sticking around for not-so-interesting reasons. Or, if the rumors about seances and rituals are true, who knows what may have been, and may still be, lurking at the top of the hill where Hell House once stood. And I have not had the opportunity to go back there in many years, so I would love to know, for anybody who goes by there or has visited or might visit, if you can still see some of those remnants and everything, if it still looks kind of the same. I would be heartbroken to think differently, to find out differently. So that covers our evening of Snakenanigans and Stories. True Snakenanigans here in our dragon costumes. Give you a good glimpse here, and I'll say goodbye, of course, with Sunshine one more time, and the incomparable Jonathan Pollock. I think he's around your... Can't even... This is weird. Magic. We're so sweaty right now. It's very hot in here, so I hope that you all have had a good laugh. Oh, and it even has wings. So just be glad that Halloween is sort of canceled-ish this year, because otherwise we'd probably be out in public like this. So this is our baby boy Sunshine, who's actually not a baby at all. He would be considered probably a middle-aged guy, and he also would not really live up to his name of Sunshine, because in the wild in Africa he would be living down in a burrow or a hole somewhere where he would enjoy ambushing delicious creatures. And instead, he is probably a captive born and raised ambassador for all snakes and adopt, don't shop, and other principles of good animal welfare and responsible pet ownership and everything else. And of course, loving all wild animals and domesticated ones, regardless of whether they're yucky snakes or not. So I will ask one more time, who is your favorite author of science fiction or horror fiction? And I have to remember what that dragon book is. Do you mind looking that up? It's literally on my Kindle, and here I sit, unable to remember. So everybody out there, you have one more minute to weigh in with your favorite science fiction or horror fiction authors. And if you have any more questions, now is the time. Otherwise, next week will be our final week with Snakenanigans and Stories. Our friend Pepper, the lively and beautiful Hog Island boa, will be joining me as my special guest, and I will be probably dressed up for Halloween, but not in a costume. So enjoy this image while it lasts, and come back to it again and again. Just waiting on that. Is it The Reluctant Dragon? That's what it is. It just came to me because I was reluctant to stop the video because I still couldn't figure out what the name of that book was. The Reluctant Dragon by Kenneth Grahame, which is a nice quick read, and it's J.P. Grunt's, favorite one. So, you have anything else that you want to add? All right on. So, everybody, until next week, it's been a joy as always, and I wish you all a lot of health and wellness and magic in your life. All right?